It's like professional development. How do we help our people be successful here? And their shared values are an important tool that they use for employee development as well.
Your business's success depends on relationships. Relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Pontau. Each week, I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts on what you can do to apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm connecting with Leslie Pagel. Super excited. Leslie has dedicated her career to helping organizations design and execute customer experience strategies that provide a competitive edge. As a trusted consultant and thought leader, she has worked with clients across the globe to drive meaningful change. Outside of work, Leslie is the founder and chief researcher of Purpose Project, a research project designed to study the topic of life's purpose. Her unique perspective combines deep CX expertise with a passion for purpose to help individuals and organizations thrive. Congrats on designing competitive customer experiences, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So why is it so important for customers or companies to focus on their purpose in order to improve growth?
Well, I would start by saying that purpose, whether we're talking about it from an individual perspective, like a life purpose, or purpose in terms of an organization's reason for existing, in both scenarios, purpose is a source of energy. It's a renewable source of energy. It is how we optimize our lives, and it's how we optimize our business. And why is that? Well, it's because purpose is it's an alignment between who we are, what we do, and the difference that we are trying to make in the world. And when we bring those three things into alignment as at a business level, when we're clear on what we are as a business, how we're going to show up in the world as a business, and the difference that we're going to make in the world, those things create energy. They allow us to maximize our operating potential. They allow us to maximize our employees' engagement in the business. They allow us to engage with customers in a way that that leads to customer loyalty, customer behaviors that are of benefit for our organization. And when we can engage all of these stakeholders, whether they're our employees or our customers, in a way that fuels or ignites this energy, that's when the behaviors start to respond. That's when customers start to refer us or do more with us or support us if we're having a down time and come to our rescue if we need it. So purpose, whether it's in life or in business, plays an important role in sparking energy from the human beings that are a part of our business.
And I think it sounds like it's kind of the culmination or the focusing of what a lot of businesses start with is like a mission, vision, values, but they don't really communicate like the next step, which is the purpose. Is that kind of what you're going at, where the companies kind of fall short of explaining it clearly enough, or where do you see that disconnect in most companies, and how have you helped them in the past to better communicate their purpose?
Yeah. So I would say I do see there's a lot of overlap between mission and purpose and even vision. Like some of those things are one of the same. And so I don't know that it's important that you have all three of those things, but you have something that is bigger than what you are. It's about the impact that you're hoping to make through your product, through your service, through your people, through your giving, whatever it is. I would say that the challenge though is that we have those are living, they're verbs. One of a good friend and trusted advisor to me, Josh Plaskoff, he talks about it as a verb. So it is purposing, it's visioning, it's about becoming. And I think we get stuck in a world where we just put statements up on the wall and that's enough. And it's not, as human beings, in your intro, you talk about relationship. It's about the relationship to the purpose. It's about our relationship to the vision, to the mission. And that's where I think a lot of companies fall short. Having it is one thing, but doing it, living it, breathing it, embedding it into the habits and the rituals and the routines of business is where the opportunity lies.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, I've seen it where there's a lot of companies that they can talk the talk but not walk the walk as it goes. And so, how do you help them go from having a mission, vision, and values, and make it visioning and mission? And how do you make it into a verb and something that they becomes a habit and not just a thing they talk about or post on the wall?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great question. I think every business is different, but it really is looking at it in terms of daily practices. And so a lot of the research that I've done has been more on individual purpose. As human beings, how do we discover our own unique purpose in life? And I'll tell you that one thing that comes up time and time again is it is daily habits. It's daily habits of tuning in to who we are, listening to who we are, being responsive and accepting of that, and then showing up authentically in the world. And the same is true for business. Having an annual retreat, that's not enough. It's got to be I think the question for businesses for a business leader to ask, a CEO, a founder, is how can I embed daily practices of connecting to purpose into the business? What are some of the things that exist in our walls, on our screens, where it can become a part of our day-to-day routines?
That makes a lot of sense. That it starts with leadership and them shedding the example of building these sort of habits into their routines. And so, what's an example of? I know you said that kind of varies from company to company, but what is an example you've seen or you've worked with a company on, like, kind of set up some of these habits? What are some of these habits that can be like a small little change that, when made into a habit, leads to these big changes?
Mm. So an example of a small habit or a small change that creates a habit that leads to big changes. I mean, the immediate example that came to mind was a CEO here in Indianapolis, where I live, who runs a very large organization, and he falls back on their shared values. So that is the living. Shared values are kind of the how we are going to work within the business. And he makes the shared values a part of every conversation. Now, it's not all of them. I think he has 8 or 11 of them. But in every interaction, he is falling or leaning towards one of those shared values and talking about it. So in that example, it's about making them top of mind in all of our business practices. So in this example, he's in meetings and he's talking about a shared value that they have in his executive meeting, and talking about leadership and things like that. So keeping it front and center, and then also using it in his case, he talked a lot about how he uses their shared value as a method for I'll call it performance review, but he wouldn't call it that way. It's like professional development. How do we help our people be successful here? And their shared values are an important tool that they use for employee development as well.
That makes a lot of sense that if he's in all the interactions he has with executive teams and other staff and stuff, to make one of these things, the 8 to 11 shared values, to bring them up in regular conversation and make it so that they're top of mind. I can see how that would lead to, one, people being more aware of what they are, and then having it guide people's decisions because they're part of the conversations that are being had as the company is being run. And so they're less likely to stray from those values as they make the leadership decisions, because they work them into the conversation every time. So it makes a lot of sense. And I can see how for the employee relationship with the business, as they're receiving support and coaching or guidance on how they can improve themselves or be more effective at the business, then it's not just like I said, a performance review, but it's like a showing how they fit into the larger purpose of the company, and how what they're doing and what the feedback they're getting, how it actually matters and is going to help them feel more fulfilled in their work. Because it's not just that, oh, you didn't like reach the sales quota. It's like there's a much more personal and meaningful feedback and guidance than I think a lot of employees get from the companies they're working for. And I can see how that would have a profound difference on the mindset that those employees come to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and you touched on another piece of it, and that is understanding your employee's purpose, because sometimes companies this is our purpose, this is what we're going to do, and then you need to fall in line. Well, an easier way to get them to fall in line is to understand, what does that employee care about? And then how can I, in knowing that, help them see how their work or this thing over here is connected to what the employee cares about. So it's really about bringing organizational purpose and the employee, recognizing that the employee has their own purpose, and it might be in conflict, but helping to bring those two things together so that you can create the overlap between company purpose and employee purpose.
Yeah, that's actually a great point to make, because the previous episode I just recorded, we were talking about the importance of leadership meeting employees where they are, and if they're trying to get people to improve their performance or to be more effective at the work they're doing, they need to help them understand how they fit into the larger organization, and make sure that they're being heard and seen and understood. Because otherwise they say, well, just fall in line with our greater purpose, but without showing you understand where the person's at when they're as a human being, and helping them draw those connections, just expecting them to come up with those connections on their own. That is something that you just can't assume is going to happen, or you don't assume they're going to make like as many connections as they could. And so the leadership is missing out on a chance to improve the engagement and effectiveness of that employee, and also the increased benefit that that employee would bring to the success of the company.
Right. Yeah. And my advice for that conversation is to start by asking the employee, what do you care about? What brings you joy? And really listening in to that, and then having a conversation about, how does your work allow you to live out some of those things that you enjoy doing, that bring you joy, that light you up, that make you excited, and working from that place, as opposed to, from the company perspective. Let the employee kind of speak into it first.
Yeah, I think that asking them what they're looking for and listening, and that sort of two-way communication is tragically absent from a lot of companies. I talked with an employee, internal communications specialist, and how she's worked for companies that had no communication with employees and like this at all, and how awful that experience was. I think a lot of companies can, if they're trying to grow and trying to scale faster, can solve a lot of these problems by listening and asking questions of their employees and better understanding what the employee's purpose is and helping them draw those connections. So is there like if someone who's listening goes, oh my gosh, I need to do better at this, what's something they can like do to start this process the right way that you'd recommend they can like take it from like the listening is going to stop the podcast once it's over and go starting apply this right away? What's like the best first step you'd recommend?
So I'm going to start in answering that by saying human nature resorts to the path that's the easiest, right? And it's hard. It is hard to have conversations with all of our employees about the things that they care about when we're working towards quotas and things like that. There's a concept called entropy, and entropy is discord. It's disorganized, and it's easy for things to be disorganized when we leave it alone. But when we have low levels of entropy, things are organized. They're coordinated, but it requires work. It requires effort. So my advice would just simply be to ask yourself, what effort can I put forward to better understand the humans that I interact with on a day-to-day basis? And in that understanding, help connect to the purpose, their purpose, and to the business purpose. So I'd answer it more with a question for your audience to consider in terms of what can they do to better understand the individuals that they're working with on a day-to-day.
I think it makes sense to start with that question, because depending on the size of the organization and the person's location in the business, what their role is, it can be very different applications of this advice, and whether or not they can talk to everyone at the company, if it's a smaller firm or if it's a bigger company, if it's just like their direct reports. But the key takeaway is to start by making it a habit. Because like you said, with that story you told about the leader of this company, when you make it into a habit, it becomes that path of least resistance. It doesn't require effort when you make it a habit, but it takes time and effort to build that habit in your brain, to rewire your brain to make it the habitual behavior. But once you do, even if it's just with the direct reports, that will spread out through the rest of the organization as people see the impact that it has with the people you're practicing with, and ideally will over time make a big difference in the performance of the company, because people will feel like they're seen and heard and understood, and that their purpose is in alignment with the company. And that'll make it a lot easier for them to show up and to be productive and for the company to grow.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Leslie. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Leslie, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.